Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Money and Mindset Podcast. I'm Sharika Alfred, and she is.
Anntricia Bray Smith.
We're, we're here to motivate you to get out of debt, build wealth, and transform your outlook on life. Today, we are going to talk about caring for your future self. Caring for your future self. Um, Sometimes we lose sight and don't think about the future because we're so bogged down in the present, especially now in 2020 and all the things that comes with 2020. Um, but I just want to kind of remind us that it is important for us to um, consider our future and also plan for our future. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Well, I think the problem with preparing for our future self is that we're so distracted by right now that we think that we're going to live forever. We think that the world is at our fingertip. We don't consider death being an option. And not only death, we don't even consider an illness or an accident an option for us. We kind of have that mentality to where we're invisible when it comes to those kind of things coming at us. So uh, we have to shift the focus into thinking long term, and not only thinking long term but looking at all possibilities of what that looks like, because we don't all make it to 60 65 with good health and with a good retirement plan and with everything that we need set up. We don't think about how the lifestyle changes uh, are going to happen. We don't think about the possibility of having to live in a institution or a facility to help us with our activities of daily living. So we don't think about retiring and then having to go and work on another job to help maintain the lifestyle that we become accustomed to. So uh, we have to begin to shift the focus now and really look at what that looks like. What does your future self look like? And in reality, if what we're doing now is not setting us up for the future that we hope to have, then we're doing ourselves a disservice.
Yeah, yeah, so true. I know one thing that I've done this for several years now, and this is just to kind of help me keep things in perspective. I just sit up and think, what would my 65-year-old self say to my, well, back then it was 38-year-old self, but you know, I haven't seen 38 for a few years, but that's okay. So, that's just kind of a good exercise to ask yourself, what would my tack on 15, 20 years to your current age self have to say about how things are going? And that's one way to kind of help motivate us to shift in those areas where we may need to shift. And if by chance, if you're listening and you're in your 20s, trust me when I tell you, if the good Lord say the same, you'll look up and you'll be 45.
Absolutely. I'm looking at my 45-year-old self. I think I'm 45 or 46. Anyway, I'm looking at myself, and I didn't know I would be here. And let me just be honest about it. And so, knowing that that is the way that I thought years ago, I thought that I would have already lived and wasn't even thinking about being mid 40s. Um, so I didn't make a lot of the preparation. I look at some of the things and the habits and the foods that I was consuming. I look at all of that. I look at how I perceive my health, and I look at how I spent my money. I didn't set myself up for being 45 years old. I didn't set myself up um, looking at what does it look like long term. And so with the shift and the changes that I've made, not only to my financial uh, habits, but also to my physical habits. I'm cautious about the foods that I take in. I'm cautious about making sure that I get up every now and then and move around and get my heart rate up and things like that. I don't want to be insulin dependent. I don't want to be living confined to having to make sure I got my medications. I don't want to do these things. And so I have to prepare now with my, am I 45? I have to prepare now with my 45-year-old mind to think about what is it going to look like in the next 10 years. You know, if financially I want to be healthy, have I established better habits at 45 to set me up for that? If I want to be healthier in my physical health and wellness, am I eating the foods that I need to eat now to set me up for that? And so it's about looking at it and really being real with yourself and not fooling yourself, because everything we do, as we have said so many times here on this podcast, is connected. You cannot separate one from the other.
Right, right. Health and wealth go hand in hand. Uh, you know, having retirement accounts and investment accounts and businesses, all those things, those are great. However, I'm also interested in the quality of
Absolutely.
life.
Absolutely.
And, we're not speaking from a place of having arrived and doing all the things, 100% of the time. But as we go on our journeys to establish a wealthy and healthy lifestyle, we also want our listening audience to join us. So we're all in this together. Um, some things that you can do to prepare for your future self. How are you planning for retirement? I know some of us, we have jobs that offer retirement plans, and we may not participate in them. you know and if you work for someone that offers for example, a 401k with an employer match, um, if you're not participating in that, then you're leaving money on the table, basically. So some things to consider are, sit down, go over your budget and your spending plan, and determine what percentage can you reasonably afford to set back into your retirement plan to kind of prepare for your future. And I know, true, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know how long any of us are going to be here, but I would rather prepare and have it, when I need it, and as opposed to needing it and not having it. And even if something were to happen to me, then there are my children, so there's the legacy to leave behind to them. So um, sit down and look at your personal situation and decide how well you're preparing for retirement. And like Ann touched on, as far as like the proper diet, that is definitely, especially with the holiday season, that is definitely an area that needs to be improved on. But, you know, just getting out, taking maybe a 20-minute walk or something, just like saving money, physical exercise, every little bit helps.
Mhm.
So it all goes hand in hand.
Oh yeah. You know, I'm looking at, me. I don't get out the house much, so you have to think about what is it that you can do in the house that you can still get up and get your heart rate moving. And there's several things you can do. One of them is clean your house. Some of us, we have even neglected that, so we have. Um, Things that could stand to be dusted. We have things that can stand to be washed down and wiped down. Uh, that's movement, guys. It beats sitting on the couch taking in Netflix and Hulu and all that good stuff. Also, if you have those things, you have streaming live from YouTube, exercise videos, things that are low impact that you can do right there in your home from your chair. There's all kind of ways where you can be proactive in taking control in the direction of your physical health as well. And I was talking about nutrition. Nutrition is important, and we don't realize how nutrition is tied to our financial health. Do you ever wonder why there's so many fast food restaurants in our neighborhoods and in our communities? And do you ever also look at how many doctors' offices and medical facilities and pharmacies that are in close proximity of them? Do you know that they're all tied together? It's because the money that you're investing in those fast food restaurants, eating all of that unhealthy fat and food and processed uh, meats and all that stuff, it is not healthy for you. And so this keeps our um, health system going. It keeps it booming because you will go and spend, let me be just realistic here. You'll go and spend anywhere from $8 to $12 in a drive-through per person in a drive-through, taking in unhealthy foods. You'll go home and you'll sit on it in front of a television for, let me be realistic, 3 to 5 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why you don't feel well. You wonder why you feel tired. You wonder why your bowels are backed up. You wonder why your heart is fluttering and you don't feel good. And you wonder why you just don't have the energy you need. So then you go to the clinic. You go see the doctor and they tell you, hey, your body isn't producing the insulin that it needs, and you're diabetic and you're on early stages of heart disease or liver disease or kidney disease, and they give you scripts
Ooh.
to take to the pharmacy for all these medications, and now you're spending money at the pharmacy for all these medications that aren't curing you. They aren't solving the issue that you have. They're not addressing the root issue, but they're taking your money. And then that medicine you take has more side effects,
Oh my.
more trouble for your body, and it overloads another system. It eliminates it from one system and overloads another one, and so now you're going back to the medical facility, you're going back to the drive-through, and it's just an ongoing cycle over and over again, and we never resolve the issue.
Hmm.
So what
So
our
you,
future selves look like, we look like we're overweight. We look like we have a mentality to where we feel hopeless in the situations that we deal with. We feel insecure. We feel oppressed, depressed, and everything but impressed. Okay, so let's just look at it for what it is. We haven't really thought about our future selves. And so we don't look at what the heart attack looks like. We don't look at what the stroke looks like. We don't look at what the high blood pressure does to our body. We don't look at what the body's inability and all of these insulin uh, uh, treatments and things that they're coming up with, that they're experimenting and putting in your body. We don't look at what that does to us.
not
And
to
so,
mention the medical bills and the money you got to pay for all the
absolutely.
medications.
So we don't look at extended periods of time at the hospital and what that does to our finances and our health. We don't look at the rehab facilities and things like that that we have to um, have. We don't look at the cancer treatments, the radiation, the chemo, and the travel that it takes to go to those facilities to get what you need. And the strain that would it not just be better to stop right now today and say, "Hey, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 70, and I haven't thought about what it's going to look like in the next 10 years. So today I'm going to make a commitment to myself to make it important for me to consider my future self, because at the rate I'm going, what I'm doing is not working."
Not
So,
working.
so whether that means I have to change the way that I live, whether that means it changes the way I eat, whether it means that I have to change some of my addictive habits, that sugar and all that stuff that I like that's feeding the cancer cells in my body, whatever that looks like for you, it is up to you to create the plan and be intentional with loving and respecting and making way for your future self. Because regardless of what you do, your future self is going to be the one that's going to reap the benefits of it all, whether good or bad.
Yeah,
So the habits that you establish today, financially, spiritually, physically, emotionally, it's going to impact your future self. So what are you
true.
setting yourself up for? Look at it and be honest with yourself. Stop fooling yourself. Be honest with yourself. I'd rather take that $8 to $12 that I'm spending in the drive-through and take it and invest it um, in a way that it's going to benefit me and my family in the long run, rather than creating a cycle of uh, increased poverty and health and other issues like that. That's not really resolving my issues in the first place.
Yeah, and speaking on the whole preparing for your future self, um, and it happens. We get older, and we may we may take very good care of ourselves, but it just happens. We end up at the doctor's office. It happens. Um, Speaking on that, one of my favorite accounts with regards to future planning is a health savings account. And I wrote a post on a health savings account. I'll include a link to that post in our show notes. But basically, if you have a high deductible health insurance plan, you can qualify for a health savings account. And what I like about it is it's like free money. And what I mean by free money is the money that you invest into your health savings account, it's not taxed as long as you're using the funds for said purposes, medical related. You use it tax free. You don't have to pay taxes on it when you take it out for those purposes. So it's just a really awesome account. And I'm not going to go deep into detail in this episode, but I will include a link to where you can read up on that. But in addition to your retirement planning, if a health savings account is something that's a good fit for you and your family, you may want to look into that, because also in addition to saving, there's also an investment piece within that account. So, for example, for me, I set it up to where there's so much amount of money that's there for us to use, like whenever we go for checkups or whatever, and the rest is automatically invested, and you select what funds you'd like to have them invested in. So it's just in my opinion, it's the best account out there, and I will include that information.
Yeah, so that's a conversation, guys, that looks like, Monday morning or tomorrow morning or whatever that looks like for you, that you'll be going in talking to somebody in human resources to figure out if it's available for you. Because I mentioned before that our jobs, these companies that we work for, that we're giving all our time and energy and the best years of our life to, they have much set up that you have absolutely no clue uh, what's available for you, because you haven't known to ask. And so that would be a conversation or an appointment that uh, you could be making and setting up and going to talk to somebody to see what kind of investments or health savings accounts and other scholarships and just different things like that that they offer, that you're entitled to. You're entitled to that. You're invested in that company. You're giving that company that facility the best years of your life, and you're not cashing in on any of it. And that's how they continue to win with you being there. That that it's not there, and they're paying you minimum wage because they're not making money. So that's something that you need to uh, consider going and looking into.
Yeah. And another thing I'd like to mention, if you do have, say, I- IRA accounts or 401k, what if you have any type of investment accounts, double check and make sure you are actually investing the funds that you are placing in those accounts, because in some of those accounts it is possible to just have your money sitting there in like a cash reserve and not actually invested in any type of mutual fund or whatever the case may be. So you don't want to look up and, look up 10, 15 years later and you think you've been investing and your money's been growing, and just to find out that it's been sitting there. So if you have not checked over your accounts lately, take a peek, see, and just make sure you're doing what you intend on doing. And also make sure your beneficiaries are assigned to your accounts the way that you want them to be. I know we mentioned back in it was either episode 4 or 5 when we were talking about ways to improve your financial health. One of the suggestions was to um, make sure your beneficiaries were current. Especially if you've had life changes, if you've gone through a divorce and maybe remarried, or I'd hate to, hate for you to have a situation where something happens to you and your ex is the beneficiary on the account. That could be kind of sticky. So just make sure you have all those things in order.
You're listening to the Money and Mindset podcast with Anntricia Bray Smith.
And Sharika Alford.
And today we're talking about preparing for your future self. And so we've just given some examples of what that looks like. And so if you're here listening today and you haven't really thought about what the future looks like for you, or even considered if the habits and the things that you have today are setting you up for the future that you would like to have for yourself, um, that's something to really consider and begin to look into. Uh, Consider your uh, financial spending habits. Consider the investments that you have. Consider the way that you or physical, getting exercise, getting that heart rate up, getting that movement, and also consider the nutrition that you're taking in. And so, yeah, in order to get where we need to be or where we desire to be, we don't control everything, but we can create a plan in the event that, say, if I look up 10 years from now and I realize, hey, I'm still here and I didn't know that I was going to be here. I didn't know that I would live this long, uh, what does that look like financially? Financially, have I set myself up to uh, have the lifestyle that I've become conditioned to? Have I set myself up health wise to be in good health and not confined to medications or to uh, health issues that could have been prevented had I just made healthier choices and things like that? So just begin to look at that.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't say, but I guess we just kind of overlooked, annual checkups. I mean,
I'm the worst.
if
I am the worst. Let's just, I'm the worst. Yes.
guys, when I tell you, because let's just be honest, there are a lot of us who probably have health insurance, and even the insurance that we have will cover the annual checkups because they're preventive measures, but we refuse to go uh, get those.
Absolutely. And I am very guilty. I would not sit here and lie to anybody to make them believe that I have did all that. Absolutely have not, and have neglected it for years. And so
Well, I for one, public service announcement. I'm for it. I mean, a few years back, I found out that I had fibroids. I ended up having to get a hysterectomy. Did not have a clue. But I went and got an annual checkup, and as a result of my annual checkup, that's how I was like, oh, we need to go do X, Y, and Z, have this looked at. And then, things like that, I just kind of think, what if it was something more, and had I not gone? So, sis, I'm gonna need you to work on that.
hey, I
That
gotta be intentional. I'm sitting here uh, helping others, understand, and I would not sit here and make you believe that I'm doing everything right and all that. Like I said, hey, I'm just here at 45. I didn't think I would be here. Don't you know that there's reason and there's cause behind that? It's because I didn't always think about my future self. This brings a whole new perspective, guys. So if you have been like me and you've neglected some of those things, and maybe you're doing a lot of things right, but there's still room for growth and change. And so that's one of the areas we can look at. So I do appreciate you bringing that up, because that is not something that I have done or been intentional about. And I guess if I want to be here for my future self, being the best that I can, if I want another 10 uh, years, another 15 years, another 45 years, then it is something that I'm really going to have to take into consideration.
Yes, yes, I want both of us to be here as long as long as we can, and not just the number of years. I want a good
Quality. Absolutely.
quality years, not just quantity. I want that quality. So that wraps up this episode of the Money and Mindset podcast, guys. Let's all care for ourselves. Let's do better, because we all have room for improvement.
I am Anntricia Bray Smith.
And I'm Sharika Alfred.